Let me talk to you about business skills that make millions for podcasters this year. I will talk about the top skills you need to have, or at least try to cultivate a few of them. And then I'll speak about the extra capabilities you want to really think about. The first thing you want to do is you want to think about a skill that not a lot of podcasters talk about, but that's really, really important. And that's adaptability. See, the whole thing is that in business, as in life, or as in podcasting, then nothing remains the same, right? You have COVID happening like a couple of years ago, and a lot of businesses were actually went out of operation because they didn't really think about planning for another environment. Okay, so what you want to do here is that you are able to constantly adapt. You want to adapt your podcast to the economy. You want to adapt the podcast to a shifting audience. You want to adapt your podcast to, let's say, regulations, whatever. I mean, whatever you have to adapt your podcast to, you have to think about the angle that could be really interesting for your audience. It's all about your audience. It's all about using actually the right angle to adapt your podcast to the audience's taste. Okay. Next thing, you want to think about customer service. Customer service is really important. If you want to really think about a business skill that makes millions for podcasters, customer service, maybe not you, but your team has to always think about listener experience. So your Alex, your listener experience is really important. Okay. So when it comes to customer service, you have to really think about engaging with the audience. If a listener asks the question about the show, you want to reply to them as soon as possible, or even better, you can even have let's say you can engage with your listener one on one through a chat. Okay, a lot of podcast hosting platforms allow you to actually have that chat feature. Otherwise, you can just create a Facebook page and really have some kind of chatting session if like the audience really like it. One thing I want to say here is that the need, you have to adapt to the audience's needs. Okay, maybe the audience wants something once a week or once a month or whatever in terms of engagement. You have to really go with the flow. Actually, so when you think about business skills that make millions for podcasters, I want you to really think about communication. I'm not asking you to become a communication expert, but you got to really have a clear idea how your tone, how your communication style actually can increase your let's say your likability as a podcast host. Okay, communication actually is a two-word street. In other words, the way you communicate with your audience, the way you communicate with others, not just your audience, but I'll say all key stakeholders, you know, that the same way they're going to respond to you. So communication is really important. So having the ability to communicate clearly and effectively to the team, to customers, to regulators, to listeners, to stakeholders. Actually, this can really help you big time. Can help your business, your podcast business, actually gain traction. Okay, so if you can properly cascade your podcast's mission, vision, and goals, you are able to build a reliable and well-oriented team. Right, you're able to attract the right audience, but also the right team to your podcast. Next, you want to also think about strategic planning. So, strategic planning is actually a skill, a business skill that can actually make millions for you as a podcaster. There are actually different approaches to steering a podcast business. Okay, so basically, as a podcast host, you want to become versed in strategic planning. This is actually the process of identifying, let's say, the best strategy to use in reaching your goals, reaching your podcast goals, reaching your business objectives. Okay. And strategic planning actually entails setting smart goals, smart SAMRT. I'll speak about that later on. But you want to analyze relevant external factors, implement standardized procedures. You want to allocate resources the right way and also set control measures. And throughout the way, what you want to do is you need to make continuous improvements all the way through. So when I speak about smart goals, I'm speaking about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals. So those goals should be really, really time bound. Okay, time bound goals. If you're looking for a business skill that can make millions for you as a podcaster, I've got it for you. This is problem solving. The thing is that your podcast could be the most successful podcast in this world. It's going to run into problems every now and then, or maybe you have a problem with your podcast equipment, or a problem with your let's say your staff or your listeners. They have a question, and you need to really talk to them. So whatever the problem is, problem solving is going to be very important for you. Okay, or maybe a listener is pissed because something you said or whatever. Things happen. People are different. People could be emotional. People are actually what I call a an emotional bundle of joy, right? You just have to know how to really communicate with them. You have to really use the proper words, the proper content, the proper acronyms, or the proper whatever it is, the proper terms to actually resonate with your to actually connect with your audience. So there is no shortage of challenges when running a podcast business. Okay, so podcasters such as you and me, they've got to continuously invest in learning, which together with experiences could hone their problem solving skills. And you got to have that. You also want to think about financial management. So if you're a podcaster and you want to really think about a business skill that makes millions for you as a podcaster, financial management. Okay, financial management is really important. I'm not asking you to become to have a PhD in accounting or finance. I'm not asking you to become a CPA. I'm just asking you to understand at a very bare minimum what bookkeeping really is. Okay, like if you want to really think about what are the financial how to report the financial research the financial of how to report the financial results of your podcast. Of course, your podcast host will do a lot of let's say a lot of analytics. They'll give you a lot of analytics data, but you have to really still pay taxes to the IRS. You see, you have to really comply with the law. So maybe you need to think about financial management. So even for podcasts that outsource their financial management tasks, the podcaster himself or herself needs to understand the mechanisms of cash flow and balance sheets, as well as the company's or the podcast tax obligation. So being financially savvy enables you as a podcaster to make relevant business decisions. If you're looking for a business skill that makes millions for podcasters, I want you to think about marketing, and then in addition to that, think about sales. Because even if you're not in marketing, you are a podcaster. You need to think about marketing your podcast. You need to marketing your show. You need to really maybe advertising, or maybe like increasing the brain's appeal, the brain name of your podcast host, okay, of your podcast show. What I want to say here is that while it's a great idea to have excellent products or service, let's say you have an excellent podcast, an excellent content, an excellent narrative, an excellent episode. All that is really good, but they do not guarantee that your podcast will flourish. So basically, when you actually propose something to the market, you have to understand that you are proposing something to the right target audience. Okay, so podcasters actually, such as you and me, have to constantly learn to analyze market trends, customer behavior, and competition to develop the most effective marketing strategy for their podcast. Okay, so it's important to be able to establish your podcast brand identity and define also your unique value proposition. Why should someone listen to you? What's the hook? What's the angle that only you can cover? What's really differentiating you from other podcasters in your niche, for instance? You also want to think about sales. Okay, again, I'm not asking you to become a salesperson yourself, but it's important if you are a podcaster to know how to maybe negotiate a better sponsorship a deal, for instance, or better ad rates, all that kind of stuff. So podcasters need to learn to sell their podcast, their show episodes. Okay, and so when it comes to sales, you want to have the same tone as you had in marketing. Okay, Your podcast must be able to communicate the value of its episodes, okay, to the target market using appropriate sales strategies and channels. And again, every industry is different. Every podcast niche is different. Maybe one idea could resonate with your audience more than others. So you just have to constantly do trials and errors and see what works and what doesn't work. If you want to really generate millions of dollars as a podcaster, think about networking, think about leadership. Those two skills are going to help you big time. Networking really is key because even if you have a successful or solo show, at some point you might want to really diversify a little bit by inviting somebody on the show. So the more people you know, the better. Okay. I mean, the more quality people. I'm not asking you to invest in quantity. I want you to invest in quality. So the more quality people you know, the better. Okay. So networking helps podcast hosts build their business contacts for suppliers, business mentors, possible possible podcast hosts, possible investors, but also new listeners. So developing actually a strong business network can help open doors to numerous opportunities and learnings that can support your podcast growth. As a matter of fact, the more people you know, the better, even when it comes to public speaking. I mean, you could be invited to speak at conferences and get paid for it. I mean, speaking fees can go all the way to hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're really a good speaker. So this is actually a good strategy to have this year. Also, think about leadership. So leadership is a business skill that makes millions for podcasters because podcast hosts must develop their leadership skills to motivate their staff. This includes what? This includes being able to communicate effectively, welcoming ideas for the team, and being confident and steadfast in pursuing goals with the ability to remain optimistic despite challenges. Remember, podcasting is a very competitive field. Your podcast is one of 6 million podcasts globally to actually vie for your listeners' ears, okay, your listeners' eyes. So you gotta really understand that you have to do a lot of work to actually earn your audience's interest. Now, great leadership creates an environment that inspires trust, teamwork, innovation, and business growth, and that's what you want to have. You want to have this foundation right off the bat, so you can really build on it in the future. So I just share with you our business skills that make millions for podcasters this year. Let me share with you a few extra capabilities to actually pursue, okay? You don't have to pursue all of them, maybe one or two or three. Whatever is easy for you, you want to go for it. Think about emotional intelligence, curiosity, written communication, but also the ability to manage your own well-being. Very important. A lot of podcast hosts ignore their health, but with no health, there is no energy. And you need energy to actually start a podcast, to run a podcast, to host an episode every week or every 2 weeks or every whatever. Okay, so emotional intelligence, for instance, actually is a great sort of skill that really helps you navigate a very human centric world of podcasting. And so basically, emotional intelligence emerges as a key skill for a podcast host who aspires to thrive and make a meaningful impact. Also, think about curiosity. So, great podcast hosts constantly ask questions. Okay, why is the listener unhappy? What more could be could the episode do to actually make people enjoy it more? How can a listener grow more this year? Okay, so the host will actually ask those questions and listen carefully. And sometimes they might actually ask follow-up questions. Okay, so that's important. Also, think about written communication. So if you are trying to make millions with business skills this year, think about written communication. So good written. A little earlier, I spoke about communication, but communication can be verbal. It can be written. It could be not written. So everything is possible. But here, I want to talk about written communication. So good written communication is an increasingly important skill as we continue to operate with remote workers or freelance hires around the world, right? Even in a post COVID environment, people were still working from home. So that's kind of important. So written communication is especially crucial because it allows leaders, it allows podcast hosts to work with their teams asynchronously, minimizing the friction of coordinating in-person meetings or scheduling calls. You also have the ability to manage your well being. So, the number one area that will impact your podcast, business, and leadership is your ability to effectively manage your own mental, emotional, and physical state. So, build a daily routine that helps you prioritize your mental, emotional, and physical well being so you can operate at peak performance, right? Because the whole thing is that podcasting is a very long term sort of goal, and your energy will set the tone. Okay, so invest in yourself daily and watch actually your podcast stats soar. Another important capability for you to really think about this year is to invest in digital literacy. So, digital literacy is important because if you want to survive the evolving market dynamics in terms of podcast listenership, you want to get acquainted with the latest tech trends and be familiar with the relevant tools that can help streamline your podcast operation. The thing is, we live in a digital age. I don't care if you are living somewhere in the rural area in Iowa or in New York City. Okay, if you want to grow your podcast business, you want to have the ability to leverage viable solution that fit your needs. I also want you to think about agility. So you have to be prepared for everything, right? So to successfully steer your podcast through ongoing challenges, learn how to make agile decisions. So make it your goal to foster a culture of continuous learning and adaptability. You also need to think about motivation. So your ability to motivate others. So if the when I say motivation, this is not just let's say a rally talk, if you will, or just making motivational speeches. You want to really you want to study the needs and goals of every single person. Try to identify what drives every member of your team so you can find the best way to communicate with them and inspire them to perform their best. Also, you need to think about problem solving. And here, I want to insist on creative problem solving. Okay, so cultivating this skill, improves actually your podcast host capacity for adaptability, strategic thinking, and overcoming challenges in the ever-changing business landscape. Okay, so, and I don't care what niche your podcast is in. Every niche is the same in terms of occasional challenges. So it makes people creative problem solving makes more people interested in the solution because you associate them throughout the whole preliminary phase. Okay, and you are able to succeed it by finding creative and innovative solutions to problems. So that's really cool. In conclusion to this conversation, I spoke to you about business skills that make millions for podcasters. I give you the top skills and then the extra capabilities, and now the conclusion. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.